Smack you in the head. We have less protein and different ion concentrations than the plasma. Why might there be less protein in it? What was one of the things we've been saying about protein all along, almost from day one?
It's big.
They don't move around too much because they're too big, okay? When they're in solution, they're just too big. They can't get out of wherever it is they're formed there. Now, polypeptides are a different story. What's a polypeptide?
Deoxyribonucleic.
What is a polypeptide? Come on. You're not going to be able to leave 244 without knowing about a polypeptide. Come on. I got a deer in the headlights look from a few people here and say polypeptide. What? Did you ever hear about that before? Come on, guys. Someone bail out the rest of the class here. Polypeptide. Can a protein be a polypeptide? Can a protein be a polypeptide?
Just a big chain because it's poly.
Poly, a big chain.
Yeah.
Like a log chain?
Yes.
Like, you know, snow chains on your car, like, what? Long chain of what? Rosie, help me out. Long chain of what? We're talking about polypeptide. You can't have a long chain of proteins if we're talking about polypeptide. Come on. What? Huh? Bang my head. Long chain of what?
Amino acids.
Amino acids. Oh. Oh. You three back there in unison. Oh. Gosh, a revelation. It was like an epiphany right there. It was like a biblical event took place. Poly meaning what?
Many.
Can a protein be a polypeptide? Yes.
Yes, it can. Yes. But you need at least to get the protein.
All brandy is cognac, all cognac is not brandy. Right. Just threw that out. Decipher that one, if you will. All cognac is brandy, not all brandy is cognac. All right, so what does that mean here when we talk about this? We say that less protein, and I mentioned here less protein. Remember, proteins are just long chains. How many do we have to have?
50 or more.
We have to have 50 or more what?
Amino acids.
Amino acids. So we can have a small chain of amino acids that's called a polypeptide, but if it has 50 or more, we're going to call it a protein. So it is possible, we're told, in some cases it's possible we can have some polypeptides that move around there because they're not so big. They're small chains, short chain, not small, they're short chains of amino acids. But when someone asks you about a polypeptide, you say, yeah, I know what that is. It takes some amino acids, you start putting them together. If you get 50 or more, you've got a protein. And less than that, you've got something that's just called a polypeptide. Produced by specialized ependymal cells in the choroid plexus of the ventricles of the brain. So we're going to produce the cerebrospinal as a result of ependymal cells in the choroid plexus. Okay, within the brain here, okay. Function, found in the brain and the spinal cord, gives buoyancy. What does that mean? Bouncy. Yeah, does anybody here know what a PFD is? If you're a boater in Lake County, you ought to know what a PFD is. PFD, personal flotation device. A life jacket. If you go on a boat, in Lake County right here, or any place in the United States, you are required to have a PFD in your boat. regardless of what kind of boat it is, as far as I know, any watercraft, you have to have a PFD. What's that all about? We're trying to protect you from yourself. We're trying to keep uninformed from being still alive. At least they know where the body is. They'll float, okay? You don't have, this is the crazy thing about it. You don't have to wear it, but you have to have it in the boat. Okay, now if you're a child, if you're, 14 or less, you have to have the PFD on at all times in the boat. Gives buoyancy to the central nervous system structure. What does that mean, buoyancy? I should throw some of these other questions. What's a PFD? Buoyancy, what's that all about?
Helps it float.
You float. It float. What's this? I'm not sure what that meant. I thought maybe you were cutting me off. Okay, gives buoyancy. Reduces the weight of the brain by 97%. I've got these two oddball things. What the heck are the name of them right now? I don't know. They're like adult diapers. My cousin gave them to me, and you put them on. Like you can take a PFD, a personal flotation device, and you put it on backwards like this, and then you can just kind of float around in like a little bobber. Well, these other ones are not a PFD. They're not certified by the Coast Guard for being a PFD. But you put them on, and you got two straps. You got a panel in front and a panel back here. Now, if you have just a PFD on, or if you, anybody just go in the water and float? You float about right here. Here's about where you are. When you put this thing on, you float right here. And so this little buoyancy device, not 97%, but this little thing, this adult diaper that we wear, a type of thing like that, they're really neat and they're really comfortable. Put them on and you just bob around in the water like that, and you don't have to work too hard to stay afloat. And they're really neat, but they're not Coast Guard approved as an official flotation device. Don't try swimming in them. You can't. They don't go anywhere. You're a little bobber in water, so you can have your little umbrella drink with you in the water there and not worry about anything. They're really sweet. What are they called? I don't know. I don't remember what they're called right now. I've had them a number of years. My cousin sent me 2 of them. And we just really like them. My wife go out in the water in the lake there, and we just bob around for an hour, and you get all pruny, and then it's time to get out, Protects the central nervous system, blows another trauma. Remember I told you about jumping on trampoline? Okay? It's supposed to create that. Nourishes the brain and carries chemical signals. Nourishes the brain. Nourishes. There's got to be some nutrient value associated with that. So this is what it looks like when we carve into the brain there and we're looking for specifically all of these vessels here. You notice that there's dominantly the venous blood return right here. Now I mentioned about choroid plexus a little while ago here. Ependymal cells, choroid plexus. Know this. Here's the choroid plexus. We talk about the choroid plexus of each ventricle produces cerebral spinal fluid here and here, the choroid plexus. CSF flows through the ventricles and into the subarachnoid space by way of the median and lateral apertures. CSF flows through the subarachnoid space, and then the CSF is absorbed into the dura venous sinuses by way of the arachnoid veil. We're constantly cycling this stuff, producing it, reabsorbing it, producing it, reabsorbing it. It's not a stable, it's not a static type of material there. And what's interesting about it, we say when you wake up in the morning and you yawn, you do that yawning, that's supposed to create a little bit of a pumping action for your cerebrospinal fluid. It's considered to be rather beneficial for us to do that. The choroid plexus, I just mentioned about the choroid plexus, it's responsible in the ependymal cells found up in there, responsible for producing the CSF. The choroid plexus hang from the roof of each of the ventricles, produce CSF at a constant rate, and they are responsible for keeping this in motion. Clusters of capillaries. What's the purpose of the capillaries? Nutrient feed into that area, enclosed by the pia mater. We go to the pia mater, and layers of the ependymal cells here. Ependymal cells use ion pumps. That's kind of an interesting term here, to control the composition of the cerebrospinal fluid and help cleanse the cerebrospinal fluid by removing waste. So the ependymal cells play a significant role associated with that. The constant normal volume is about 150 ml. 150 ml, 150 milliliters. How much is that? Well, I continually have, see if I can find it. Do I have it here? Hang on. Aha. My ever-present alcohol. How much is this? Does anybody remember? You should know that. You really should. This is a standard uniform volume that's sold in these little vials right here. This is Schmirnoff. This is red berry, red, white, and berry. Generally only sold at 4th of July. All right. Schmirnoff spot. How much is there? 50 ml.
Not enough.
50 ml. How many of these do you need in order to have that quantity?
3.
That's not new CLC math. How many did you say? 5, right? Yes. Tim up here's been asleep for a few hours. 5. How many did you, Tim? 3. There we go. Ding, 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 ding. Okay. 3 of these, 150 ml. That's not a lot. Do you understand what I'm talking about? 97% buoyancy of the brain supplied by the, attributed to the amount of CSF, but we're only talking 150 ml. And we're constantly recycling it here. It says replaced every 8 hours. You produce it, okay, you recycle it, it sends out, more is produced here. 150 ml. This is 50 ml. These little bottles, these little alcohol beverage bottles you can buy if you only want a single shot there. 50 ml. You can do this. Put your hand together like that. That little space in there is about 50 ml. Okay? Does anybody remember what the tip of the little finger was? I gave you a size relationship equivalent. What is that tip of the little finger?
5
1 ml, 1 cc. 1 cc, the tip of your little finger, look at the fingernail, it goes across, that's 1 centimeter, it goes long, that's 1 centimeter, it goes deep, that's 1 centimeter, that's a cc, cubic centimeter. 1 cubic centimeter is 1 ml. Did you understand what I just said? 1 ml, 1 cubic centimeter. When you go to something where we talk about, you get an injection. Hang on. This is 10 ml. That volume in that little syringe is 10 ml. That's 10 times that tip of your little finger, that little thimble right here, okay? 1 ml, this is 10 cc's. Says how much is the injection? It's 10 cc's. Or 10 cc's is equivalent to what? That should be in the test. 10 cc's is equivalent to what?
10 milliliters.
What? 10 milliliters. 1 milliliter, 1 cc. People have these motorcycles out there that say 1,500 cc's, 3,000 cc's, okay? You know, the European or the Japanese silver ice rockets are usually listed in cc's. Might find it's horsepower, but they oftentimes rate them in how many cc's is it? 1 cc, 1 ml. 150 ml, constant volume. Is there a problem? About 500 milliliters is generated every day. 500 ml, how much is that? Give me a relationship.
The half of the liter.
Pardon? Sorry?
The half of the liter.
1/2 a liter. You know those water bottles that we,
Like
you see,
milk or
you know the 1/2 liter water bottles? Usually one in the garbage. Nobody has a water bottle here today? Amazing. Oh! How much is that?
500 ml,
500 ml. Or,
500 cc's.
thank you. Also referred to as 1/2 liter, 1/2 liter. 2 of those makes a full liter, right? That's new CLC math also. Take 2 of those and that's a whole liter, 1,000 cc's, okay? All right, so here's the choroid plexus, here's these ependymal cells. Know the ependymal cells, please. Know the ependymal cells. What do? They produce what? Choroid plexus hang from the roof. Your ependymal cells use ion pumps to control the composition. Replace every 8 hours, and we are producing about 500 milliliters in a 24-hour period of time. That quantity right there, that's not a lot.
That's
So we
really-
just have a real tiny little space around all of that neural tissue there that's bathing the spinal cord and the brain and providing some shock absorbing capability. I'm sorry, Cleo, you had a
So
question?
it helps remove the waste,
The
pump.
yes, that area there is cleansing. We're helping to cleanse the CSF there by those ependymal cells. Use ion pumps, but they're also responsible for production here, cord plexus. CSF forms as a filtrate containing glucose. What's glucose?
Sugar.
Some sugar. How about oxygen? Vitamins and ions. Notice here, here's sodium, chloride, magnesium. We have some ions in there as well. Waste and unnecessary solutes are absorbed. The ependymal cells, capillary connectivity, connects the tissue with the PM. Okay, hydrocephalus. If any time you hear hydro should mean what? Hydroelectric plant is what?
Full of water.
We're using water to produce electricity, right? Hydroelectric dam, Hoover Dam, hydroelectric dam. We have hydro meaning what? Water. Okay, so obstruction of the movement of the CSF. If we have an obstructed movement, remember, we're supposed to produce it, we're supposed to cycle it, we're gonna produce 500 milliliters a day, but there's only 150 ml in there at any one time. Did you follow what I just said? What if there's more? How come? We're overproduction or we're not getting the drainage out of that? If there's some blockage, unfused skull bones of the newborn allow enlargement of the head. When we were looking at the brain, remember we talked about sagittal suture, coronal suture, okay? Do you remember the sutures, the brain there? They're unfused. Why is that? Because we have to have, as the child grows and develops, we have to have the brain grow in size. We have to accommodate that by continuing the protection of the skull around that. Well, what if you're producing an excess amount of the cerebrospinal fluid and it's not draining, there's some blockage, brain damage in an adult due to a rigid adult skull. If it happens in an adult, it's a more serious problem. Remember we talked about, we made reference here just a moment ago, we talked about an infection of meninges like that, and you have an infection, usually you have swelling that goes along with an infection. Are we following this? So if the skull is real rigid right here, what's going to be crushed? The brain itself. In a child, the skull will just enlarge, okay? Treatment by draining the ventricular and put a shunt to the abdominal cavity. They put a tube that goes from the brain area here down the spinal area and down into the abdominal cavity, and it's going to be very similar to something that you might consider for a dialysis. It's used in some dialysis patients. This is a hydrocephalus baby. Why is that head swollen like that? Why can that head be swollen like that?
Because the skull enlarges
Why?
in babies
Why?
when there's a buildup of cerebrospinal fluid.
Why can it swell like that?
Because the sutures aren't fused yet.
Yeah, the sutures aren't fully locked in place just yet.
Soft spots, right? But they're not.
Those fontanelles, yes. You have the fontanelles, but you also have the suture lines, the coronal suture, sagittal suture, okay, lambdoidal suture, all right? Those sutures haven't fully fused yet, and so this skull can continue to enlarge like that.
So what they do to,
Well, in this case right here, this is hydrocephalus baby, that there's problems there because they're still compressing the brain, so they have to put the shunt in. They put the surgical shunt in that area there. I had one patient in my office that had the shunt, only one, she had had a surgical scar down her spine until they came to the thoracic area, and then they went down into her thoracic cavity and went into the abdominal cavity, where it just is a drip type thing that goes into the abdominal cavity, and we talk about peritoneal type of dialysis that takes place, that was taking place with her.
Did she have it like since birth or?
I'm sorry?
Did she have this since like birth or like it was a condition?
You know, hers developed as an adult. Hers wasn't, from childhood.
So
Or
like
she-
a baby born like that, would they ever like?
Well, this is, that enlargement of the skull like that is sometimes considered to have some permanency to it, but not in every case, apparently. But, apparently if this is, you know, this seems like a real advanced situation right here, where they would be able to perceive this, you know, whoa, we gotta do something here right away, something's gone wrong, we're not getting the drainage of the cerebrospinal fluid here. But it's a crisis intervention situation, it's not some chemical way. 'Cause what's going on in that case is obstruction that's blocking the circulation drainage of the cerebrospinal fluid that's being produced. We're producing 500 ml in a 24-hour period of time as an adult. Okay? And as a result of the unfused bones of the skull there, at those suture lines, the skull can, the fluid in there can build up, so it causes this expansion. All right, blood-brain barrier, getting on with that information we talked about. Help maintaining the stable environment for the brain, separates neurons from some blood-borne substances. Okay, and so we talked about separating them. What is this? Importance of sleep. How did that get there? Is that in your notes also in that manner? Huh.
Well, it is, all the way up.
Is it down there? Is it someplace?
It's on a different page, yeah.
Is it? Oh, I gotta figure out what went wrong in there. Okay, my fault. Okay, slow wave sleep, non-REM stages 3 and 4 presumed to be restorative. Restorative meaning what? Does that sound like it's important? Yeah, I think so. People deprived of REM sleep become moody and depressed. This is, remember I told you about new parents or a person who has chronic illness, chronic sickness, they're constantly, you know, they're being awakened on a regular basis, someone who has noisy neighbors, you know, that type of thing, and you're up 3-4 times a night, right in the middle of a real nice evening sleep, boom, you're wide awake again. Okay, moody and depressed is not uncommon. Okay, REM sleep may be reverse learning process where superfluous information is purged from the brain. Remember I made reference to it, it's almost like REM sleep is considered a time when you're filing. But then it's also considered important because it's like saying, I don't need that. That was really dumb, I don't need that. Okay, superfluous stuff. Daily sleep requirement decline with age. We talked a little bit about that. Stage 4 sleep declines steadily, may disappear after age 60. Okay, may not get into that stage 4. Okay, some sleep disorders. Have you heard about narcolepsy? Narco, sounds like drug something or other, doesn't it? You got narked on. Abrupt lapse into sleep from awake state. My brother-in-law talks about that. He says, I'm driving down the highway and he's a construction worker and he sometimes has to go all over the, I guess the county area here or down into the south side of the city and he's, you know, does his job and he's coming home and he says, I just fall asleep. That sounds dangerous, don't you think? Often have cataplexy. What's that? Sudden loss of voluntary muscle control, cataplexy. Orexins, O-R-E-X-I-N-S, wake-up chemicals from the hypothalamus. From the hypothalamus. We go to the hypothalamus? Okay, destroyed by the immune system. What does that sound like? Wake-up chemicals from the hypothalamus, orexins are destroyed by the immune system. What does that sound like? Give me the term we might use there. Autoimmune? Yeah, it sounds like an autoimmune situation where when we have the immune system targeting healthy responses in the body, that's usually considered to be something autoimmune here. So orexins may be key to possible treatment here. Sleep disorders, insomnia. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Insomnia? Chronic inability to obtain the amount or quality of sleep needed. What could be the response, what could be the problem there? What's that?
Just fall asleep. I think I had a friend, he could just be walking and all of a sudden, just, he'd just lean against the wall.
No, but this is insomnia. We're not talking about narcolepsy now, we're talking about insomnia. What's the deal with insomnia here?
You can't
Pardon?
fall asleep.
We're just-
Can't sleep at night.
Yeah, what might be responsible for that?
Your body's always in alert.
I'm
mode.
sorry, you got 3 v 1, what's that?
Too many orexins?
Say it again?
Too many orexins in the brain?
Yeah, but I mean, without looking to that, without going that deep into this thing, what might be another reason for it?
Maybe
What's going on out there? You were out there, what are they doing? We thought it was you. Everybody here was saying, especially your friends. Chronic inability to obtain the amount of or quality of sleep needed. What could be responsible for that?
I mean, it could be too much caffeine, it could be, like blue light coming from the phone, it could be stress.
Yeah.
You got your
Anxiety,
phone,
overactive
every
mind.
ding you hear on your phone wakes you up. Some of you don't have enough sense, shut your phone off at night.
Night shifts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you're that person that's on call, or you have to be the on-call person, that type of thing could be a problem. Once again, we go back to childcare, we go back to situation of chronic illness, we go back to maybe some of your behaviors. My father-in-law was a great one. He says, I got insomnia. My father-in-law was a cement finisher in Chicago. He was a hard-working man here. He's just a really hard-working guy. He'd come home from work about 6 o'clock. He'd lay down and he'd sleep for about 2 hours. He'd have his meal and he'd lay down and fall asleep for about 2 hours. So now it's 8 o'clock, and he says, and then he'd wake up and he'd have a big bowl of ice cream, and then he'd say, well, it's time to go to bed, and he'd lay down, and then he'd pace just about all night long. And says, oh, there's something wrong with this picture. First of all, the nap shouldn't be part of the deal here. You should maybe have your meal and relax a little bit, and then at an appropriate time go to bed. But no, he'd take a nap here, which just knocked off all of the tendency towards sleep. Okay, it was a destructive behavior on his part. It was a personal choice to do that type of stuff. And then he'd talk about having insomnia all night long, where he can't sleep. So if that happens to be one of your types of deals like that, where you just, I can't sleep at night. What are you doing in advance of that? You know, some people have problems with caffeine. They'll take coffee all day long and deep into the night, and then they can't sleep at night. Well, they can't. You got your eyes popped open, or the sugar. You take a. I can fully appreciate. Done this a number of times where I say, so I'm going to just try this. You take, I'll have some ice cream or something like that, as I did tonight around 5 o'clock. But by 6, 7, 8, by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that's my pancreas is pretty well taken care of that. If I have it at 10 o'clock, I'll go to sleep, but I'll be up at 2 or 3, eyes wide open. I'll be wide awake and alert for an hour, 2 hours, or something like that. It's like the pancreas kicks in and says, hey, we got rid of this sugar, we're going to dump this stuff. And then your pancreas is the one that sweeps the sugar out of the bloodstream. It's supposed to either use it or store it. And so you can do a personal experiment on yourself like that and find out. Are you one of those people that gets, eyes popped open at a certain amount within about 2.5 to 3 hours after you've had something like that? Not you, huh? Okay. All right. May be treated by blocking orexin action. Okay, we talked about orexin here, and we said it's a wake-up chemical from the hypothalamus. Sleep apnea. Boy, that's a real common buzzword, and we hear about CPAP machines and all kinds of devices like that that are used in sleep apnea. What is it? A temporary cessation of breathing during sleep. Can be a serious problem, but does seem to be responsible for a number of things. Causes hypoxia. Hypoxia is a term you need to store away there. You need to know that. It's going to be low tissue oxygen. So it's an oxygen deficiency in the tissues of the body. Hypoxic state of the body there. Now we're back to blood-brain barrier. Oh, this is messed up, I'm sorry. Composition of the astrocytes. Here's that astrocytes. Remember the astrocytes? They're looped into a group of things called what? What are they called? Glial cells. How many glial cells are there? 6 different ones. Which of those in what area? What do we have? 4 in the
CNS.
central nervous system and 6 in the, oh, 2 in the peripheral nervous system. What are the 4 in the central nervous system? Astrocytes?
Ependymal.
Oh, ependymal cells. Have we been talking about ependymal cells? What was the significance of the ependymal cells? What is it?
They produce cerebral spinal fluid.
Yeah, in the ventricles. Yeah. Ependymal cells. Okay. Astrocytes, ependymal cells,
Microglial.
microglial cells, oligodendrocytes. Okay? All right? Oligodendrocytes were very similar to what? The Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system. What was the deal with the Schwann cells? Production of the myelin, right? So the oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system and the Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system are all responsible for that phospholipid type of stuff called myelin, the insulating material there. And what was the 5th one we didn't talk about yet, or 6th one actually? Satellite cells, yeah. All right, satellite cells. But here are the astrocytes, are the most abundant meaning highest concentration. Anybody has a gun to your head and says, okay, what's the most abundant glial cell in the body? Astrocyte. Okay, good deal. Saved yourself. Okay, notice this. Continuous endothelium of the capillary walls. That's composition. They have a thick basal layer. They have these feet which wrap around, provide the signal to the endothelium for formation of the tight junctions here. Selective barrier allows nutrients to move by facilitated diffusion. What is that? What is the difference between facilitated diffusion and diffusion?
One of them requires ATP and the other does not.
Facilitated diffusion. You're gonna challenge that test, weren't you?
What?
I didn't hear what she said.
You thought you did, because you
What did she say?
up here in front.
One of them requires ATP and the other does not.
Is that right? Oh, ding, 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 ding. It's diffusion. What does that mean?
Passive transport.
Oh, passive transport. So neither of them require ATP?
Diffusion means what?
Passive transport.
High to low concentration. Does not mean ATP. When it's diffusion, you can't use ATP. That's active transport. As soon as you go to active transport, then you're talking ATP. If you're talking diffusion, you're going from a high concentration to a low concentration. No ATP. Okay? Are you still with me? Okay, good. All right, so when we talk about facilitated diffusion, an easy way to think in terms of facilitated diffusion is that there has to be a carrier. It's almost like saying you need a guide or you need an escort. In order to go from point A to point B, you need an escort, you need a guide. So what does that mean? If we put a hole in this wall right here, okay? All of you have seen those turnstile, those doors that, you know, that have that little revolving door thing like that. Well, the revolving door is much like what we're going to talk about with regard to facilitated diffusion, except that revolving door is like a protein, and the only way you're going to get through there is if there's that protein there that allows that they're going to let you in and let you out. You're going to go from high to a low concentration, but you need to have almost like a revolving chair there that's going to open for you and then it's going to close as soon as you pass through. Do you follow what I'm talking about? No ATP, but you need to have a guide. And what's the guide? It's an opening there that'll allow you to pass. Because you're high concentration, you want to go across that area. Facilitated. It's diffusion. You're going from high to low. No ATP. All right. Selective barrier allows nutrients to move by facilitated fusion. Metabolic wastes, proteins, toxins, most drugs, small, non-essential amino acids. I thought all amino acids were about the same. This is small, non-essential amino acids. What the heck is that? Aren't amino acids amino acids? Well, apparently some of them are smaller than others. Are there different sized human beings? Okay, I guess that's where the answer lies. Potassium is denied. Huh? Potassium. Allows any fat-soluble substances to pass. Fat-soluble. Fat-soluble substance, usually we talk about it was going to accumulate in the fatty tissue, right? Including, what? Alcohol can cross the blood-brain barrier? Yeah, that's why you get loopy on one drink without food in the stomach, okay? You want a cheap drunk and a wasted evening? Go out to dinner and have your alcoholic beverage first without taking any food. And all of a sudden, what happens, you got an empty stomach and you put alcohol in, what does it do? Goes straight into the bloodstream, goes right to the blood, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it starts impacting the brain right away. You want to have a more enjoyable evening? You put some food in first, and then you sip your little concoction with the meal. Get a dilution factor. Yeah, you may get loopy if you have enough of them, but at least it's not going to be the immediate destroy the evening. Any of that make any sense? Alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier real easily, real quickly, as a matter of fact. Nicotine, where do you find that? Grapes, raisins, grapefruit. What? Huh? Cigarettes. Nicotine, of all things, nicotine. Smoke them if you got them, right? All right, what about the next one, anesthetics? Isn't that the intent? We want to knock them out. You want to knock them out, so you have an anesthetic. You put it in, and what does it do? It crosses the blood-brain barrier. Does that make some sense? Yeah. We want something that's going to be active, and it's not going to take a long time to do it, so we put the anesthetic in, it'll cross the blood-brain barrier there. Absent in some areas, vomiting center and the hypothalamus. You got a vomiting center, isn't that amazing? We actually have a center. Oh, this is the vomiting center calling. Yes, go ahead, vomit. When necessary to monitor the chemical composition of the blood. Vomiting center and hypothalamus, where it's necessary to. What happens when you vomit?
Feel better.
Why
do people vomit?
Get a toxin out typically?
Excuse me?
To get a toxin out of some kind?
I didn't get the first part. You get a
toxin out, like what your body.
Tossing out. Oh, tossing out. Yeah, it's a real clinical
Toxin.
term.
Toxin.
Toxic.
Get the toxin
There it
out.
is, a toxic. The one time we hear about people who get sick or they have some kind of a food, that they've taken that they say, and then they vomit, regurgitate, barf, hurl, revisit your breakfast, lunch, dinner, something like that. Okay, so what it amounts to is when you vomit, there should be a center there that says, hey, this isn't right. Let's get it out of here. But what happens? You've got the acidic substances in the stomach, so all of a sudden you immediately upset the acid-base balance within your gut when you vomit. Okay, do you ever get, anybody here ever vomited? Okay, you all have. All right, do you ever get that kind of really weird kind of fatigue sensation or feeling like that?
Cold sweat.
That's your body trying to reestablish the acid-base balance after you've purged the acidity of the stomach contents, in addition to whatever else came up with it. Yeah, there was a nice $25 meal that just got on the floor there, you know?
And it is terrible too, because when you do it, you don't even care. You're so drunk, you just lay right there. You just lay right there with it. You just
Leave it where it is. I don't want it back.
You're so drunk, you just
I don't want
lay
it.
right with it.
I don't want it back. You old commode hugger, you. Okay, so the point about it is, I've never done that. You must be talking about yourself. Okay.
Experience.
There is there is a situation. Why is it that two people that really binge drink, one of them dies and the other one lives? One of them vomits, the other one doesn't vomit. One of them lives, one of them dies.
So there was one that had a purge and one that absorbed it all and went past that limit?
Okay, the alcoholic toxicity in some cases can override the vomit center. Do you understand what I'm talking about? And it says it doesn't know the difference between this is too much, and then you get to a point where you've tipped the balance so that there's no recovery from that. The other one, the system is capable of appreciating that. Probably the neurological system is capable of appreciating, we gotta get rid of this, and then they'll vomit and they'll purge it and they live another day. Whereas the other one, as a result of the alcoholic toxicity, okay, the toxic alcohol situation is so overriding that it overrides the vomit center and that individual is not able to survive. And maybe does purge a little bit, but then aspirates and then dies as a consequence of that. Are you following me on this? There is the possibility that there's been cases like that where these people, there was a famous actor whose son did this thing. He was just binge drinking with one other fellow. I think it was just one other individual. And they were just really packing away. Well, the actor's son died, but this other guy was just commode hugging all evening and he survived. This one didn't, that one did. This one got rid of the toxins, that one didn't. Okay? Don't be that person. I guess I'm trying to encourage you about, don't do what he did, what Cleo did here, jeez.
I don't drink no more.
No, don't drink any less
Drinking
either.
is not cool. I
Not-
don't like this,
Now we're just into guzzling. I don't drink anymore. I just guzzle. Okay, vomiting center and hypothalamus were necessary to monitor. Homeostatic imbalances, traumatic brain injuries. Let's cover this. Have you heard of traumatic brain injuries? Okay, concussion. When you hear about a boxing match, what's the intent of the boxing match?
Knock you out.
To knock them out. Not with an anesthetic, but with a concussive injury. The intent is a concussive injury here. Temporary alteration in function. Person is knocked out. Concussive. Contusion. Permanent damage. What's the big deal with football players? I mean, you know, the quarterbacks and stuff like that. Or any of you who know of people who play contact sports in high school. What do they have? 2, 3 concussive injuries like that and they're out for the season, right? Our high school football players used to just put them back in the game. Not anymore. You have 1 or 2, I mean, in the course of your school year. You play soccer and you head the ball and they determine you got a concussive injury, and then you go and play basketball and you're out playing baseball and you had a concussive injury. You're done. 3 concussive injuries. Why is that? Remember he talked about summation, additive situation. They may be responsible for some permanency, some permanent damage associated with the young, youthful brain. But it's also happening in our adults, our quarterbacks, our professional football players. Some of them are just, you know, it's all about the game and all about the money. I just got my bells rung a little bit. Getting your bells rung is a concussive injury. I had one not too long ago. I'm walking down the stairs in this little bit in this house, and bam! You know, they say saw stars and stuff like that. And woo, you know, that type of thing for a little while. That was a concussive injury. Minor, maybe. Any of you had that happen? Sure. Opened the car door on myself one time, you know, about a year or so ago. You know, you got to back away a little bit, and then you open some car doors. I didn't back away, and it thumped. Man, that's going to leave a mark. Which sure had my head spinning for a while. You know what I'm talking about? Those are concussive injuries. A subdural or subarachnoid hemorrhage may force the brain stem through the foramen magnum, resulting in death. Remember about Liam Neeson? His wife was on the bunny slope out in Colorado. On the bunny slope. Does anybody understand what the bunny slope is when you talk about skiing? I mean, that's the beginner's area. That's like you're on flat ground and you're just going like that. There's no slope to that, the bunny slope usually. It's just a very gradual. She's on the bunny slope. She fell. She hit her head. Just, oh. Had her bells rung, so to speak. She thought, I'm okay, I'm okay. People rushed her and said, I'm okay, I'm okay. About 6 hours later, she was dead. Natasha Richardson. You can look that one up. I think it was about 6 or 8 hours later, she was dead. She had a subdural hematoma, subdural hemorrhage like that. That little I'm okay event escalated so quickly where she had the bleeding hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is the bleeding in the brain there, okay? It didn't seem like there was any big deal associated with it. But Liam Neeson's wife, Natasha Richardson, fell on the bunny slope and smacked her head, apparently enough, so that she forced the brainstem through the foramen magnum, and you had the hemorrhaging, the brain blood bleed like that. And within, I think it was less than 6 hours or so, they airlifted her, but there was nothing they could do. It was in Aspen or Vail or something like that out in Colorado. You can look that one up. Natasha Richardson on the bunny slope. Cerebral edema. Now you have swelling of the brain associated with traumatic head injury. We hear about blunt trauma. You hear about people getting, a head into the windshield or something like that. Some major fall, you end up with the traumatic head injury here can lead to cerebral edema. Homeostatic imbalances, CVAs. Those are fairly common. You need to know about CVAs. Cerebral vascular accidents, aka stroke. Ischemia. Ischemia here is a tissue deprived of blood supply. Ischemia. Hypoxia was the term related to what?
Deficiency of oxygen.
Deficiency of oxygen. Could ischemia and hypoxia be somewhat similar in this regard?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about tissue deprived of blood supply. The brain
Yes.
tissue dies. Blockage of cerebral artery. Cerebral artery is bringing what kind of blood? It's up on the board here. What kind of blood? Oxygenated blood. Okay? The cerebral artery is bringing oxygenated blood. If there's a blood clot there, you're not going to get the blood supply to that tissue, and so we're going to end up with a problem. So we talk about ischemia, cerebral vascular accidents here. Hemiplegia. Just like we talked about the hemispheres of the brain, we have the right and left hemispheres of the brain. Are we good at that? Okay, here we're talking about hemiplegia. We have a paralysis on one side of the body, okay, or sensory and speech deficits. It doesn't have to be just full paralysis. It could be just a partial involvement, which can be rather devastating because it's speech or sensory deficit associated with that one side. Transient ischemic attacks you might hear about real commonly, especially if you work in some care centers. You're going to talk about, we usually hear it abbreviated as a TIA, trans ischemic attack. What is that? Well, they talk about it, well, it's a minor stroke. You hear it kind of commonly referred to, what was a minor stroke? Had a minor stroke, I had a TIA. Minor stroke, minor stroke, minor stroke. I mean, we're talking about something's wrong. We're getting some loss of the blood supply to a particular area there. A temporary episode of reversible loss of the blood supply to that particular part of the brain. A temporary. It resolves relatively quickly. Sometimes, I know there's a party that I know about, an elderly person, he says, well, he's had about 8 or 10 TIAs. My mother had about 3 or 4 of them during the last couple of years of her life. Do you know people that have talked about having TIAs? Many of you might or should. Tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, is considered to be a really, really important introduction or at least intervention that can be used for the treatment of stroke. Tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, is the only approved treatment. It's considered to be the clot buster for strokes. It has a limitation. It has to be introduced within 4 to 6 hours, I think, within less than 4 hours of identified stroke. We have to have the introduction of the TPA. Degenerative brain disorders here. Have you heard of Alzheimer's? A progressive degenerative disease of the brain that results in dementia. Progressive means what?
Quickly.
Doesn't mean quickly. Progressive. Progressive doesn't mean quickly. Progressive means it's a gradual deterioration. It can be quick. doesn't have to be.
But
It's gonna be, it's a, the circumstance is deteriorating, it's a deteriorating progression that's going on. Progressive means that there is a ongoing deterioration of it. It doesn't have to mean quickly, it can be, I mean, in some cases with the Alzheimer's here, 5, 6 years, some cases it can be very quick, it can be aggressively progressive. Some of them can be, you know, progressive, but not so aggressive. Okay, aggressively progressive means there's a real rapid progression here. A year or 2 years and a person went from normal neurological cognitive function to someone who is now, you know, in a really deteriorated state. Memory loss, this is the characteristics of Alzheimer's. Memory loss, short attention span, disorientation, there eventually is some language loss, irritability, moody, confused, hallucinations. Real sad. If you know anybody that's dealing with Alzheimer's, a dementia of this type right here, it's really sad when you see it. Plaques of the beta amyloid peptide form in the brain. We talk about these beta amyloid peptide plaques. Toxic effects may involve the prion proteins. Prions are proteinaceous substances that are, we hear about Creutzfeldt-Jakob or mad cow or some of those other scabies. That's going to be associated with the prions. Don't hear much about prions, but for a while there, mad cow was a big deal. You heard about mad cow quite often, probably it goes back 10 years or so. Neurofibrillary tangles inside the neurons are responsible for killing. So we talk about the plaques and the neurofibrillary tangles associated with Alzheimer's. Those are both considered conditions now. And if you watch the little clickbaits on your, you know, on your news feeds or something like that, they say, well, new evidence about, new evidence about, new evidence. And you, yeah, just sensationalism there. The brain shrinks. And notable individuals that suffer with Alzheimer's, can you name anybody that you know of? How about Glenn Campbell? Does that sound familiar to anybody? I was a lineman for the county. Okay, Glenn Campbell, Charlton Heston, Rosa Parks, Etta James, Robin Williams, Ronald Reagan, Sean Connery. Any of those names sound familiar to you? Those are Alzheimer's cases, okay? 007 and Sean Connery, Robin Williams, Miss Doubtfire, and I don't know, Robin Hood, and a whole bunch of other ones like that, okay? Okay. Parkinson's, another one. We hear some degeneration of the dopamine-releasing neurons of the substantia nigra. Basal nuclei is deprived of dopamine, becomes overactive, and we have resting tremors. What's a resting tremor? When you're just sitting here and you're not doing anything, there's this type of thing going on, a resting tremor. Intention tremor is another thing. You know, we're talking about an intention tremor, but a resting tremor is generally linked to basal nuclei, and it can be part of Parkinson's. Don't know why. Cause is unknown. Mitochondrial abnormalities or protein degradation pathways, possibly. What's a mitochondria?
Organelle.
Where have you heard about a mitochondria?
Ribosome
Okay,
respiration.
threesome, get together. Have you heard of mitochondria before? Huh?
Yeah.
Where?
In the cell.
In the cell. And what does it do?
It's a powerhouse.
For what? You're going to have to just keep fishing it out of you. Come on, what? Does what? ATP production. Yeah, I know it. Okay, ATP production, mitochondrial abnormalities. Doesn't sound good. If you're not capable of producing the ATP of the mitochondria, okay. Treatment, L-DOPA, deep brain stimulation, gene therapy, research in the stem cell transplants group promising. How about Muhammad Ali? How about Michael J. Fox? Anybody remember Michael J. Fox?
Yeah, Back to the Future.
Back to the Future? No? Rose? Rocio? No? Oh my God.
Who that is?
He's in the news on a regular basis. He's done a number of presentations to Congress for, the health issues associated with that, where he's spoken up about research relevant to Parkinson's. Huntington's disease is one that you may never hear about, but it does come up in the literature from time to time. It's a fatal hereditary disorder, so don't sit next to somebody who has Huntington's disease, right? Cleo, you look a little puzzled
Yeah,
about that.
I'm going to ask you why.
No,
I heard of it, but I don't hear a lot about it, so.
No, you don't.
I guess,
So you don't sit next to anybody that has it, though.
yeah, okay.
My grandpa,
Pass out over.
What?
my grandpa had it,
Honestly.
honestly, yeah.
I mean, it was diagnosed Huntington's?
It was very rare.
I
It
never
took a
seen
while
it.
to figure out what it was. First thought it was Alzheimer's, Parkinson's.
Do you have ancestral links to South America?
I'm not sure.
Not sure?
I haven't
There
done
is
test.
the South or Central America, there's a community down there where there's a high concentration of people that have Huntington's. And it is a genetic disorder, okay? It's a fatal hereditary disorder. So you're not gonna catch it. It is passed in a genetic, and you have to have the genes for this here. So it's caused by an accumulation of the protein huntingtin, and it leads to a degeneration of the basal nuclei and the cerebral cortex. What's the cerebral cortex? The outermost covering, remember, where the synaptic activity takes place in the cortex there? All right. Initial symptoms, wild, jerky, flapping movements there. They call it choretic movements, Huntington's chorea. Okay, later it's marked by mental deterioration and treated with drugs that block dopamine effects. Is your grandfather still living?
No, he passed away a couple
How old was he?
Oh,
Is he in his 70s maybe?
70s, yeah.
Okay, generally speaking, they talk about the people probably don't get past their 40s or 50s.
So what is the symptoms? Just jerking? I mean,
It's what?
can you actually see the symptom? Can you
Yes.
see it on someone?
Oh, when the people,
Yeah,
He jerked a lot, and it was hard for him to like walk, cause he would just throw his arms everywhere.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
opening
choretic, they
things,
talk about it as a
things.
choretic dance, these people walking.
Yeah.
It's just real unusual activity like that. It's choretic dance there, Huntington's chorea. And chances are you're never gonna see it. You're the first person that's ever mentioned any association with knowing about, but it's, once again, YouTube, good place. You can go and look at choretic dance, or Huntington's chorea, manifestations of it. But it's a very debilitating, but most of the time, and the interesting thing about it, there is a community, I think they report South America, where the individuals, there was a lot of, individuals who had the genetic predisposition for it, and then they fostered children, and so it was very dominant in that entire population of people in this community, city, town, whatever it was here. But that's where most of the studies have come from relevant to this, because it is fairly rare. But then again, you consider if that genetic material, if those people moved away from there and they had the predisposition for it, then it may be manifested again someplace else. So, like I said, you're the very first person that I know of that's ever mentioned about it. Mother's side, dad's side?
Mother's side.
On your mother's side? And your grandfather, you said, right?
Mhm.
Interesting. I've never had an individual. I've used that information almost every time I've taught this course, and I've never had anybody tell me that they knew anybody that had that before. So it's extremely unusual to experience that. Stem cell implant research seems promising on that. Take a little break here.